I ought to have been doing. And I really think Dr. Myers kind of rubbed off on me because I got this bee in my bonnet that I should. Granddaughter Dion got the call to come to the White House. Oh, to be with the president and the vice president and all those people from Congress. I tell you, I still pinch myself to see if it really happened. And when he signed that bill into law and gave me one of those pens, I tell you, now that's when I could have done a holy dance.
That's when you could have done a holy dance, or like the kids say, did they call it twerking?
Oh.
We're not gonna call it that, what they say, huh?
That's what they say.
What did you end up doing with your pen?
I still have it in a very secluded place.
Okay. What are your first memories of celebrating Juneteenth?
I was a little one in Marshall, Texas. That's home. And we'd go to the fairgrounds. There'd be music and food. There'd be speeches and food, ball games and food, and food and food and food. When we got to Fort Worth, not so much.
How were you as a child, Miss Opal?
Our grandparents, we were taught to work. I mean, everybody had a job. I don't care how small, everybody had a job. Grandpa would even bring people to my grandmother and tell her to put them to work, feed them, give them a place to stay, put some clothes on them. Already 19 children. And do you know he would send people to my mother and Marshall and tell her to help them get on their feet?
Whoa.
And she had to, too.
You talked about your mentors earlier, Miss Opal. What about role models? What role models did you have? Was it your mom, your dad, your family?
Yeah. My grandparents and my mother. Oh, my mother was a hard worker. When we came to Fort Worth, if we came on Saturday, she was working in somebody's kitchen on Sunday.
Opal's mother, Mattie Broadus, met Otis Flake at school. While there, Mattie got sick. Her family came to pick her up. That's when Otis, he asked Mattie's father for permission to marry her.
And he said to my dad, "You sure you want this sick one?" As if he had some others that he could choose from.
Oh, wow.
But he gave his consent. My mother drew a picture of a house she said my dad had to build before she would marry him.
Opal's mother didn't see Otis for 2 years, not until he finished building that house. The family moved to Fort Worth. Opal was 10 years old. For her, Fort Worth, it was different.
I didn't know whites until I came to Fort Worth.
Wow.
And I had a rude awakening.
Her mother sold the cow for train fare so they could move to Fort Worth.
Bud Kennedy is a Fort Worth Star-Telegram columnist and city historian.
You know, that sounds like something that you would hear out of a storybook.
He's covered Lee's movement from Fort Worth to D.C. But there's one story she kept mostly secret her whole life.
We did not grow up hearing about what happened in 1939.
Her family moved into a home at the corner of New York and East Annie.
He said my mom had it fixed up so nice.
But they were a black family in a white neighborhood.
When the people in the neighborhood started gathering, there were 500 strong.
Her mother and father left under the cover of darkness.
The people tore the place up. They burned furniture. They did awful things.
14 police units at the home did nothing to stop it.
If you look at the wire service stories carried outside Fort Worth, The coverage was extremely vivid. Fort Worth family attacked by white mob. You didn't see those headlines in Fort Worth.
It was June 19th, 1939, Juneteenth.
We'd had an opportunity to show them what neighbors could be like. That wouldn't have happened.
Today, the corner lot is as forgotten as the story that happened there.
It wasn't something that held a bitterness for her. It wasn't something that fueled her to hate white people.
It wasn't until 2020 that her lifelong efforts towards Juneteenth and equality reached the rest of the country. The killings of black people across America led to protests that opened eyes and minds to how close the past is to the present.
Those kinds of things are wake-up calls, and people have decided we're not going to take this anymore.
You've been around, you've seen generations. Do you feel like we've actually made significant progress?
We have made progress, and you have to remember, Rosa Parks, we made some progress. Martin King, we made progress. Malcolm X, Sojourner Truth, Frederick Douglass, we made. The sit-ins, we made progress. George Floyd lost his life. And of course, that has given us a surge. But there's going to take the young people of this day and time to eradicate these things that are keeping us apart. And they need to take it seriously that they can't leave it up to somebody else. The city, the state, the federal government. They have to do it themselves.
Why was Juneteenth the lesson that you latched onto so tenaciously? Why was Juneteenth that lesson?
I didn't have the knowledge about what actually happened. And I too felt like others should be apprised of what went on. Others should know. Others should make decisions about how we should celebrate freedom. And to tell you the truth, we're not free yet. And if we don't change, we're all going to hell in a handbasket. We've got to do better than what we are doing.
The philanthropist Fort Worth needed. Look, you achieve more in retirement than most will achieve in a lifetime. I need to ask you this. Did you expect to be working as hard in retirement?
Well, I knew one thing. I wasn't going to be sitting and rocking and waiting for the Lord to come and get me.
A farm, a food bank, and a lifetime of service.
Daybreak is sponsored by Dent Mavericks.
Here at Dent Mavericks, we waive your deductible, we deliver a rental. It's what
go to the White House and meet so many extraordinary people who are on the same page I'm on. We have to turn our attention to the disparities in the country, joblessness and homelessness and schools that don't have textbooks that tell the truth. Health care, police brutality, climate change. As a nation, we have to take the responsibility of making our country the very best country there is, because we are a nation who can get things done, and we need to be the leader.
On your website, it lists you as a social impact leader. What does that mean to you?
I have no idea, honey. Call it what you will.
You say you just doing the work.
Everybody is a social impact leader if they will talk to young people and put them on the right path to making this the greatest country in the world. It's desperately needed.
The greatest country in the world still has people who go hungry each day.
What do they say? Rise from the ashes.
People Miss Opal saw in her own neighborhood in South Fort Worth. A food bank in the area struggling to keep up with demand. Then in 2006, someone set it on fire.
Heavy smoke rising from the Metroplex food bank turned out to be a cover, say investigators, for crime.
I was with a group in the food bank and it burned. Behind my house was this huge facility, 32,000 square feet. It was up for sale for $1.3 million. I had nerve enough to ask for it. Those people leased us that building for $4,000 a month.
Wow.
I nearly had a hemorrhage. Where we gonna get any $4,000? But we paid it for 11 months. And the month we didn't have it, the owners came to us and said, looks like you're doing a good job out here feeding 500 families a day.
Wow.
And they gave us that $1.3 million building. I tell you, I could have done a holy dance.
Look, you achieve more in retirement than most will achieve in a lifetime. I need to ask you this. Did you expect to be working as hard in retirement?
Well, I knew one thing. I wasn't going to be sitting and rocking and waiting for the Lord to come and get me. He was going to have to catch me. And so I knew I had to be doing something. And I knew there was plenty to do. Getting the food bank up and going, I polled people standing in line, and 66 of them said they were willing to farm. And so I asked the Trinity River Authority, and they gave me the use of 13 acres of land on the Trinity River. Oh, we have produced food without pesticides. We share it with the food bank and the WIC program, and our farm manager, Joel, goes to the market, and he's taking wonderful produce, and the people are loving it.
It's one of the best views in Fort Worth on the banks of the Trinity River.
We have some Anaheim chilies.
That's where you'll find Opal's farm.
We sell a lot of the heirlooms.
And you'll most likely spot Gregory Joel, the farm manager.
We're busy all the time preparing either for the next round of beds or harvesting and maintaining the new ones. I harvested these 2 rows yesterday.
Community leaders are lending a hand to make all of it happen, growing everything from tomatoes to carrots.
We literally have to harvest tomatoes every day.
If you're new to North Texas,
right here is going to be a fall cantaloupe.
It is not easy to farm here because the soil is very dry.
It's going from rich East Texas soil to really bad West Texas soil. That's why it's so important if you do organics, you're building the soil health. We want to leave this better than we found it.
They're improving nearly 5 acres of land and kickstarting a farm-to-table operation, serving food deserts like the United Riverside neighborhood.
One of the questions early on was, how do we define food insecurity and look at all the problems? And we did a mind map that shows virtually every problem that we face, crime, poor education, stems from food insecurity. And Tarrant County is, I believe, one of the top 10 counties in the country for food insecurity.
Opal's farm is now on track to produce nearly 20,000 pounds of harvest this season.
We have 4 varieties of squash down on the other end.
It's truly a mission with deep roots that will continue to grow.
To know that this is Miss Opal's legacy and I get to be a part of it is real important to me, because not only are we helping people, but on a personal level, working with Unity Unlimited and Miss Opal has been, it's like working for family.
Nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize, signed with an A-list agency. So how is Miss Opal handling all the attention?
When you've got things to do, you just keep doing them.
We sit down with the woman who keeps her on schedule.
Just like she wanted to go with them to go pick up lunch. No, you got somewhere else to be.
Oh, we gonna be done in a minute. She said, I thought I was done.
You have to wait when she starts telling you cut, like she directed stuff.
Miss Opal.
Yes.
You still all right over there? Look, you've been nominated for a plethora of awards, and I'm gonna make sure I don't mess this up. Person of the Year, Fort Worth just named you that.
Okay.
You just received a Global Lifetime Achievement Award, numerous awards for your philanthropy. Your portrait hangs in the Texas Senate chamber.
Your portrait will hang in the House that is of the people of Texas forever.
And now a Nobel Peace Prize nomination. How does all of those accomplishments, all of those awards, you hear Nobel Peace Prize, what was going through your head?
When I heard that Nobel Peace Prize, girl, I thought about a Santa Claus list. Have you ever seen one like that long? I got one. Okay. I think of all the things I can get done. I'm delighted with the accolades. Love them.
Dion, how proud are you of your grandmother?
You know, I'm very proud of her. I know our family is proud of her. Matter of fact, my cousin Richard called me the other day, and he told me how proud he was of me for helping her legacy get established and making sure that not only is she not forgotten, but that the remembering of her isn't just for the little things she does in Fort Worth.
Look, despite all the awards and recognition, the things that we can see, right? What do you want people to remember, to know about your grandmother?
The thing that I want them to know is that she's more than Juneteenth. Yes. I know that that's the thing that's catapulted her into the spotlight, but she's a very consistent giver, a very consistent humanitarian, even before anybody took notice of her.
Miss Opal, you didn't set out to make a name for yourself, right? This was the work that you were doing, you had been doing for quite some time. You just signed with a talent agency in your 90s. You are a big deal, okay? So we got to talk about this. What has this newfound fame, everybody seeing what you're doing, what has it been like for you?
I go about my daily routine. I have, you know, the stardust in my eyes. 'Cause work is work. And when you've got things to do, you just keep doing them, and it doesn't seem like a big deal to help somebody else.
It's deeply rooted in the DNA. Dion, you hear your grandmother saying, you know, dropping off food or doing all the things. You manage her now. There's a lot that goes into managing her and managing her schedule. What is a typical day like for you guys?
So a typical day, there's usually about 2 or 3 Zooms.
Good morning, sir.
Some in-person, you know, things like, you know, what we're doing with you.
Smiling and a little bit of body language as you talk.
Juneteenth is 365, okay? Freedom is 365. As long as she has breath and folks still want to hear why Juneteenth is important, she'll continue to let me book her.
I want to talk about CAA, Creative Arts Agency. That is a pretty big deal. They're not just signing everybody. I mean, the list, Hollywood A-list, Tom Hanks, Ava DuVernay, Steven Spielberg, the list goes on. How did that come about?
And it's really neat. So I really have to thank Scott Cullither with Invent Group. Invent Group signed on to be our marketing and branding.
Scott and his team, they actually took on Miss Opal pro bono. From there, his team, along with Change.org, they helped get Miss Opal to D.C. to drop off their petition to make Juneteenth a national holiday. From there, it was natural to join CAA.
There has to be a little fun that comes along with this journey of this newfound fame. Have you found some fun in it? What has been one of your funnest moments?
Oh, listen. I just adore the young people, you understand, who want to help the elderly. And sometimes I let them. It surprises them when I can make up the stairs and, you know, I don't have to have their hands on me.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of cute.
The utmost admiration for teachers, maybe because she was one.
I taught 3rd grade. The kids were 8-year-olds. So long I was beginning to act like them. So they gave me another position.
Miss Opal's passion for education, how she helped mold young minds in North Texas.
freedom, they gain the right, the freedom to read and write.
The educator on a mission to inform the masses.
It's going to take an education on the part of all of us, not just blacks.
While helping the world understand Juneteenth,
Freedom from the 19th of June to the 4th of July. Now that would be celebrating freedom.
She walked to make Juneteenth a national holiday.
If you start something, do it. Don't let anything stop you.
But the grandmother of Juneteenth, well, she is not done yet.
Your mission as it relates to Juneteenth is rooted in education, making sure people are learning what's going on. Talk to me about the importance of education to you.
Oh, I think it's very important that people be aware of our history. And our books should show it, that people, we can't erase history. We need to learn from it and be sure that what happened then doesn't happen again. In Texas, the enslaved didn't know they were free for 2.5 years after the emancipation. And when they did find out, and that was because of General Gordon Granger and several thousand colored troops stopped in Galveston, told everybody that the enslaved were free. He even nailed General Order Number 3 to the door of what's now Reedy Chapel, African Methodist Episcopal Church.
You're an author. Your book is called Juneteenth, A Children's Story. Why is the history of Juneteenth important to share?
It's a children's book, and it tells the story of how, in fact, the children are sitting around me. You know, all the artists is superb. And he has these children of all nationalities sitting around, and they asked me to read them the book, Juneteenth, A Children's Story. And I tell them about how men from this country and other countries stole people from Africa, from their parents, from their sisters and their brothers. And then there's a picture in the book where the President Biden is signing the law, making it a federal holiday. And the last page is fireworks. Oh, it's a beautiful little book, even if I did write it myself.
You know, one of the things you talk a lot about is education. You are a teacher in Fort Worth ISD. You know, teachers these days, they are being asked to do a lot.
And they should be paid because they have to buy materials for the children and lunches for kids who don't have food. It's ridiculous that they can't see that they need to teach us more.
In your opinion, what do you think needs to be done to keep our schools safer?
I'm not sure at this day and time whether they should have metal detectors. And I know the teachers, bless their hearts, beside teaching and having to be fearful and, I don't know, at this stage of the game, I'm thinking metal detectors.
Yeah.
But something needs to be done, and somebody's going to come up with some ideas.
From school safety to segregation, Miss Opal has seen it all. Her legacy will live on not just in school history books, but in the hallways of her own high school, a school she graduated from in 1943.
History is usually a thing taught in schools, but here it lives.
I Am Terrell is a school that has a rich history that dates back to the 1800s.
And in 2022, that past is present.
They get to see this every single day when they walk the halls. They get to see the history, they get to see the legacy, and they get to understand what it is that they're walking into.
Ricky Brown is the principal here at what is now I Am Terrell Academy for STEM and the Visual Performing Arts in Fort Worth ISD. The original school opened in 1882 as the East 9th Street Colored School. In 1921, it was renamed I Am Terrell High School after the principal.
I Am Terrell was the only school for black students in all of Tarrant County. So you had students that were coming from Burleson, Keller, Aledo, Arlington, Mansfield, HEB.
Racism and segregation sent them here. But brilliance and a standard of excellence is what the school sent out to the world.
You had the best of the best that were coming to I Am Terrell to get a great education, but we were also fortunate in the sense that we had some of the best educators that were here in Fort Worth, and a lot of them came out of I Am Terrell.
Legacy lives in these treasures, cherished and donated by passionate alumni. And in this room, dedicated to honoring their history.
It's powerful. This is really powerful.
These faces, these stories, artists, educators, change makers.
You know, here we have Dr. Opal Lee, class of 1943.
Miss Opal Lee taught in Fort Worth ISD for decades, but she also left her mark as a student here.
Her impact never really left this space.
Today, I Am Terrell is a space for everyone.
Oh, man.
An inclusion its first students could only dream of.
We have students that represent every nationality. Our demographics, I would say, represent the city of Fort Worth.
This year, the new I Am Terrell celebrated its first graduating class. She came back to speak to them in April.
We're just really proud of the fact that she did walk these halls and her legacy still lives here in I Am Terrell.
Your grandmother is a remarkable woman. You have a front row seat watching her make history alongside her. What does that feel like to you?
You know what? It really feels natural. It really feels like all the things that we've done, you know, up until this point, you know, how God's orchestrated my life, it's really kind of been to support her at this time, this window of opportunity. So it really does feel natural. And I'm grateful for being here and for this season.
Look, as our manager now, you two obviously are very close. Have you always been that close over the years?
No, as a matter of fact. And it's usually like that with the paternal grandmother, especially when the parents are divorced. So you're closer to your mother's mother, all right, because she keeps you more. And the fact that my dad's mom was not the grandmotherly type. I mean, she's too busy. She, you know, was in the community doing everything. So she wasn't the when you go get sick, you go to her house, right? So that was my mom's mom. And I remember turning 35, and it hit me that I had never told my grandmother that I loved her. Because we're more show me love,
yeah,
you know, and that kind of gets you in trouble too, because some folks' love language is affirmation. I just show you I'm here. If you need me, you got me, right, kind of thing. So I said, you know what? I've never told you I loved you, and I do. I love you. Okay, baby. And that was the moment, and it was gone. But yeah.
Miss Opal, your granddaughter manages you. What is that relationship like?
Volatile.
Why is it volatile?
Because she has, you know, the things that she wants to get done, and I might want to stop and pick the daisies, and she ain't ready for that, so I have to listen, and it's awful hard to listen to youngsters. I'm here to tell you. Ooh, girl. But I manage. I do manage.
Okay. You have any rebuttal?
No.
Who's Miss Opal's favorite grandchild?
My cousin Renee.
Oh, really?
Yes, my cousin Renee. Renee is the judge of the Northern District of Texas. She's got 2 sons, and they're twins, and she's the oldest.
Okay.
I mean, that's the first
All right,
one.
there you
All
go.
right, so,
All
you
right.
know. So she's the oldest granddaughter, but I think she's a favorite.
Okay. Miss Opal, does that sound about right?
Well, if she wants to take it like that, everybody else thinks she is the favorite.
So I wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah,
Do the other grandkids get a little jealous?
No, I don't think
Nah.
so. They're too busy.
Exactly. They're glad I've ticked up this wing of it. No. Ain't nobody jealous of me. Ain't nobody jealous of me at all.
History will live here in Fort Worth.
And so the goal of the National Juneteenth Museum is to be able to share that story so folks can find themselves in the history.
Miss Opal's legacy and the lessons of Juneteenth, all under one roof.
Tell the girls I met Scoop.
Affectionately known as the grandmother of Juneteenth.
Is this volume right now all right?
Yes, yes.
At the age of 95, Miss Opal Lee is not slowing down thanks to family.
Granddaughter of the grandmother of Juneteenth.
Dion Sims will serve as the founding executive director of the National Juneteenth Museum.
We took 1,500,000 signatures to Congress. We got a call to go to the White House.
The groundbreaking will happen in the fall of 2022 here at East Rosedale and Evans Avenue. Opal Lee has owned this property since the 1990s.
Folks have tried to buy it from her, and she's like, no.
No, because Lee saw it as an economic development opportunity one day.
All right.
That day is now here.
I wanted to do a holy dance, but the kids say when I do that, I'm twerking, whatever that is.
Miss Opal, keeps poking us in the back. She's like, I want to see it before I have to go. So y'all make sure to, work as fast as you can.
The financing for the museum involves a huge price tag with corporate and community donations.
$70 million, because the Juneteenth Museum is not only just a museum, it also has economic redevelopment components to it.
Unlike the current Juneteenth Museum, the National Museum will include a retail space, lodging, all while celebrating the end of slavery.
When the Juneteenth Museum opens here at Rosedale and Evans, Sims wants people to know it will be so much more than just how slavery impacted African Americans.
Whites, blacks, working together for the common good of emancipating the previously enslaved. The Southern Underground Railroad into Mexico. Mexico abolished slavery in 1824.
Sims also shared they will use the date June 19th as a symbolic number for everyone to help build the museum.
They're going to be giving $6.19 so they can have a part to saying, I helped build that.
Get to know the older people in your neighborhood because they've got something to offer.
Yes. I am so excited about what you're saying because
A year later, what will you be reflecting on during this year's walk?
The fact that freedom is closer than it has been, that we're not free yet. There's so much that needs to be done. I think about young girls who are taken into sex slavery. I'm thinking about young people who are lulled over from overseas to look after somebody's children. They take the passports, they don't let them correspond with their families. It's a form of slavery. There's so many other things. And I know I've mentioned health care and homelessness and joblessness. And so I'll keep on walking, keep on talking. We'll do something that'll make us all one.
Yeah, keep on walking and keep on talking. Speaking of walking, 2.5 miles, that's no easy feat. And we're gonna do it in the Texas heat, so to speak. What motivates you to keep on walking and to keep making this happen?
I want people to understand that if you're 95, you can still do some things. You don't have to sit and rock. You can walk, and many people can. You can walk with your cane. Some people got canes, you know. You don't have to walk fast, but just to make a few steps, just to be aware that you can help and that this is your fight, not the government's, not the cities, not the mayors or the governor. So, like I say, I'll keep on leading, if that's what you call it.
Yeah, you're definitely doing that.
And making people aware that we can turn this country around.
You've lived a full life. What do you want your legacy to be?
That the old lady helped somebody along the way. That she wanted others to help somebody along the way. That's freedom. I think that's a form of freedom. And that we can do no less We're gonna help our family, man. It's in the Bible.
Yeah.
We are our brother's keeper. And it behooves us to follow the Bible.
Yes, it does.
Oh, it's got some good things in it.
It does have
You
some
know?
good things. I'm happy you mentioned the Bible because I wanted to mention a scripture, Hebrew 11:1. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen.
Oh, right.
And I think that scripture perfectly describes you,
Ooh.
your work that you do every single day. So thank you for being here, for allowing us to have this conversation with you. A lot of young folks, mature folks, folks in between, looking up to you and appreciate and value the work that you do. So hopefully we're giving you your flowers enough right now.
Hopeful some of these folk who will listen to this will understand that it takes every one of us to make this the greatest country in the world. And I believe it.
Yes,
I really do.
Me too. Thank you, Miss Opal.
Mm-hmm. Cut!
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 A walk for freedom. Hundreds descend on Fort Worth to walk together with the grandmother of Juneteenth. We are live, kicking off special coverage of their 2.5-mile trek. That's next.
It's still
On the thunder, tell a storm I'm new. I'm a wild, come a march on the regular.
Oh, what a lovely song to get this thing started on. Look at that crowd, you guys. We're live from Fort Worth this morning, and baby, I'm excited to be out here. You're listening to Tashara Parker right now, myself, Joe Trahan, out on the scene. Fort Worth, that crowd forming. Miss Opal Lee is out there. I'm hearing she's under that red and black tent again. Tashara Parker live from Fort Worth here this morning in Evans Plaza, the historic
Evans Plaza.
And what a great day this is. We are celebrating the incomparable Opal Lee. We're celebrating the Juneteenth festivities that are kicking off in a big way here in Fort Worth. And it has been a fantastic day for me already. I got a chance to say hi to Miss Opal Lee. It is living history for us all. And we're here to document it for you because it's incredibly important to so many. What Miss Opal Lee represents is incredibly meaningful for so many.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, folks started really knowing about the work that Miss Opal Lee was doing, probably in the last few years, but she's been doing this for decades. So we actually can see Miss Opal Lee on our screen this morning, you guys, and she is just a ball of joy. And you see she is ready to kick this thing off because that walk is starting at 10 o'clock here this morning. So thank you to Miss Opal Lee. I can't say that enough. She plans to walk this 2.5-mile trek, you guys, at 95 years old, and she say if she can do it, anybody can do it. So we have a live look right there at Miss Opal Lee. And we've been talking about Evans Plaza and just the historic nature of it. It's an honor to Texas African-American history, and specifically the history here in Fort Worth, honoring doctors and lawyers and folks who have just led the charge in making Fort Worth what it is today.
Yeah, I mean, there are even journalists, media members that they've got the history of here, and they've documented it in such great fashion. And there will be many history books written about what Miss Opal Lee is doing right now, doing on this day. Just as a primer of what we've got going on, it's been a year and a day since President Biden signed into law that Juneteenth would become the 11th federal holiday. It's the first federal holiday since Martin Luther King Day became a federal holiday. Incredible stuff, and it is mostly in part to her fantastic work.
Can I just say real quick, I know we got to get out the scoop here in just a bit, but you mentioned it becoming a federal holiday, and Miss Opal was on the scene when they actually signed that bill into law. Let me tell you something. We were supposed to have Miss Opal live on our Daybreak show on WFAA, and I have been teasing folks all morning saying that we were going to have her on our show, and Miss Opal had to ditch us and make her way up to D.C. to get that signed for good reason, right?
She had a date with the president.
Yeah, she had a date with the president.
May have been a little bit more important than WFAA. But she's got that pin that she kept when President Biden signed it. Incredibly important to her. And before we do anything else, I want to say fantastic job on the interview.
Thank you.
It was moving. It was great stuff.
And that's all Miss Opal Lee.
Indeed.
I want to get out to Scoop Jefferson here this morning on the scene with us out here in Fort Worth. Scoop, what are you seeing out where you are?
Well, right now we're organizing the Freedom Walk. Miss Opal's drinking water to stay hydrated. She is leading this Freedom Walk. She plans to do as much as the 2.5 miles as possible, and we will be here live with her. Back to you.
All right, thanks so much, Scoop. Appreciate it. There you go. Miss Opal Lee looks ready to do it. It's fantastic. Her persistence, those 2.5 miles. And let's show you the route because it's important to know that the 2.5 miles, it's symbolic. You can see there the trek goes west, starts here in Evans Plaza, and it will eventually end up in downtown Fort Worth at the Pier 1 building. That 2.5 miles symbolic of the 2.5 years it took for slaves to find out that they would be freed here in Texas.
We got about 15 seconds. Look, I need you guys to stick around. Our live special, our live coverage of the Walk for Freedom, Miss Opal Lee's Walk, it starts right here at 10 o'clock. You can watch it right here, Facebook, YouTube, WFAA Plus on Roku, as well as the Amazon Fire Stick. We'll be right back.
weekend adventure. When you see this symbol, you know you're watching a show that is specifically designed to be educational, informational, and entertaining.
Today on Wildlife.
Actually signed into law a year and a day ago. And so much effort put into this by that young lady right there, 95 years young, 2.5 miles at a time. She trekked a few years ago symbolically from Fort Worth all the way to Washington, D.C. She got the attention that was needed, fought the good fight, and this holiday is now a reality. And so important for so many people.
Yeah, absolutely. You talk about that 2.5-mile trek. And by the way, she's going to be taking that 2.5-mile trek. She's been making sure she's hydrated this morning. And she says, look, if she can get out there and make this happen, any of us can get out there and make it happen, taking it one step at a time. And that's exactly what she did to make this a federal holiday, because it took a while to get here. Folks, of course, have just started to learn and hear a lot about Miss Opal Lee, but she's been doing this work for decades to try to bring attention to this. But like you mentioned, symbolically, that 2.5-mile trek is really what started to get folks' attention, and she got the right attention. President Biden, of course, signing this thing into law last year.
And it's interesting for those of us who are from Texas, right? Because Tashara and I grew up knowing about Juneteenth, but a lot of people across the country, they didn't have the concept of what it is. But we all know now, as we should, with it becoming the 11th federal holiday because of all the great work by the incredible Opal Lee. I hope that you had a chance to see the program from 9 to 9:45. Tashara did a fantastic job interviewing Miss Opal, because she has this incredible spirit. She's got this humor, and then she has this way of pivoting from that humor to something that is so poignant. It's just it was so well done. I thoroughly enjoyed it. If you haven't had a chance to see it, it'll eventually be on WFA.com and WFAA Plus. I cannot stress enough, you need to see it. You did a fantastic job.
And she's so powerful. And there were so many people that work behind the scenes to bring this whole thing together, even the team that's out here right now, to bring that special to light. So, yeah, certainly if you get a chance to go ahead and watch that, please, so that you can get some history and understand the woman behind it. You know what I really appreciated about that special is that, yes, we call her the grandmother of Juneteenth, right? But we learned about Miss Opal as just a grandmother. She's a grandmama, y'all, to a whole lot of grandkids. And just to hear their stories and to hear her share about her stories as a mom, you know, one thing she mentioned in that interview, when she made her trip from moved from Marshall to Fort Worth, Texas, she said she had never really seen white people. And I was like, wait a minute. And so just to hear her share some of those little nuggets throughout our interview, it just helped you get to know her as a person and not just the grandmother of Juneteenth. Obviously very important, and the reason that we're out here at the historic Evans Plaza. But it just showed a different side of Miss Opal Lee, and I could sit there and listen to Miss Opal Lee for hours. So yes, to Joe's point, if you have not got a chance to watch that special, and if you missed it just before we came on here live, we'll of course have that on WFAA.com, and you can see folks kind of passing behind us. I know you're watching that video right now, passing behind us as they get ready to get in line for this 2.5-mile trek, and it ends at Pier 1, starts here at Evans Plaza.
That's right. In fact, let's show you the route. And that 2.5-mile route is symbolic of the 2.5 years that it took between the Emancipation Proclamation being signed and slaves here in Texas finding out that they were free. Right? It was that cool day, incredibly cool for so many people. June 19th, 1865. And, of course, Emancipation Proclamation was January 1, 1863. So that's why it's 2.5 miles. You saw the route will take you westward and go towards downtown Fort Worth. And Miss Opal Lee has done this 2.5-mile walk so many times. It showed her steadfast determination, knowing that she had right on her side, and she just kept going, and she got what she wanted and what a lot of us needed.
You know what? And one of the things that she often says, and you'll hear this in some of the interviews because we
watched a lot of stories and got caught up on Miss Opal Lee and the history of this incredible weekend, this incredible day. And she often says, you know, we're not free until we're all free, right? And she says we all can do something to make this happen. If people can be taught to hate, they can be taught to love. The woman that you're seeing on your screen, who we're talking about here this morning, Miss Opal Lee, out there shaking hands and hugging babies and all the things, because that is what brings her joy. And she's going to get in on this 2.5-mile trek here in just a bit. But yes, her walk for freedom, she says we can all do something and we can all be a part of something. And she says it doesn't take just one person to make something happen. We can all make change along the way. So I always think that's important to mention, because oftentimes we think we need, you know, all these people supporting it. Absolutely, that helps the cause. But we can all get out there and just take one step at a time, as she's done for so many years.
Well, and I do like the thread that she follows, and she says we all need to work more so that we can all be free. Miss Opal Lee didn't just do this for black people.
Yeah.
That needs to be said.
Yes.
She did it for everyone. The rising tide lifts all boats in this way, and it's important that we all understand and learn her history and the history behind why she created this movement. And that's part of the reason why it's so important for us to be here today to document what is going on. Miss Opal Lee's inspiration, her dedication, and her example is not just for us, you know, black Americans and black Texans. That's not it, right? She had a goal. She knew what she wanted to do. She knew it was right. She used her activist voice to make it happen. And listen, that's a lesson for everyone. It doesn't matter, you know, what shade of the rainbow, what color you are. Look,
it does not.
We all can learn from that, and that's why I think I couldn't be happier to be here today.
And you know what, Joe, you mentioned earlier, you and I, you know, we're from Texas, we're native Texans. We know about the importance of Juneteenth, what it has meant for us for so many years. I know this is on our digital platform, so we may have people watching from all over. And I know we had a piece where we just kind of explained the meaning behind Juneteenth, just to give people an idea of what Juneteenth is all about, what it stands for, why we continue to celebrate it here, and why President Biden, of course, knew that this was something that was important to make into a federal holiday. So I want to just give you kind of a glimpse into what Juneteenth is all about. Juneteenth marks the end of slavery in the United States. After 4 bloody years, the Union defeated the Confederacy to win the Civil War and abolish slavery. In April 1865, Union armies began marching through the South, freeing enslaved people by the thousands. On June 19, 1865, 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation was signed, Major General Gordon Granger arrived in Galveston, Texas, all with the message of freedom. It was there he read General Order Number 3. The people of Texas are informed that in accordance with the proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involves an absolute equality of personal rights and rights of property between former masters and slaves. Granger's words spread through Texas. The news of freedom led to joyous, spontaneous celebrations of the newly freed, with the first official Juneteenth celebration happening 1 year later on June 19th. You know, I'm hoping that gave folks kind of an idea of what this is all about. And you're watching the Woman of the Hour, the Woman of the Year. In fact, she's Fort Worth's Person of the Year, Miss Opal Lee, leading this walk for freedom, y'all. 2.5 miles and just a 95-year-old woman out here in this Texas heat, baby. We're making sure she stays hydrated. We have, of course, emergency crews on the scene to make sure everything is copacetic out there, Joe Trahan.
Yeah, no, and it's interesting, right, because there's this incredible vibe out here that we are getting a chance to be right in the middle of.
Yes.
It's positivity, it's action that we see right in front of us. It is also improvement. It's betterment for a lot of people, and that's what Miss Opal Lee is symbolic of. And, you know, getting a chance to take those steps and recreate the 2.5-mile walk is so important and so meaningful to so many. And I mean, there she goes. I can't imagine what it must have been like for Miss Opal when she continued that trek time and time again. Because, guys, you have to understand that for several years, Miss Opal Lee didn't know if she could reach that end goal of getting this Juneteenth holiday, enacted into law. Yeah. She didn't know, but she had to keep going and to recreate it and to have all these people celebrating and supporting her on this day is really cool. So, listen, Scoop Jefferson, he is going the extra mile, literally. He is walking out on the route, and let's check in with Scoop now to see what's going on the route right now. Scoop?
As long as I'm not in his shot.
I get it, sir.
Yes. We're live.
Hello, everyone. We are just in the
turn it right.
beginning
Be
of
careful.
the
Turn it right.
Freedom Walk with Miss Opal Lee, who plans to do as much of the walk as possible here in Fort Worth. This is something that she has worked on for years and something that she's very proud of, the community coming out, participating in the Freedom Walk. She herself, she's been hydrating and basically preparing for this day, and she has personally invited so many community members. There are so many community members here from Fort Worth and the surrounding areas. Again, this is a 2.5-mile Freedom Walk organized by Miss Opal Lee and her family, celebrating Juneteenth. And again, and what's interesting, this is also going to be a documentary, and we will continue to cover this walk. Back to you in the studio.
All right. Thanks so much, Scoop. And listen, I mean, everyone wants to be around Miss Opal Lee, and I think you got a sense for it right there. It might be just a little chaotic, just a little, but I get it, right? Because it's not very often we get to see living history in flesh.
And this is organized chaos. So let us
Yes,
just
absolutely,
say that this is
absolutely.
organized chaos happening out here. And I'm so happy that we all, to Joe's point, just get to witness all of this happening out here. Because when Miss Opal Lee, when I saw Miss Opal Lee and Joe, when we saw Miss Opal Lee pass behind us earlier to get to the front of that walk, we were supposed to be doing a mic check. We took these headsets off and ran over there to get video and pictures of Miss Opal Lee, because everyone, to your point, wants to be around her, wants to celebrate her, wants to make sure that we give her flowers. Y'all, she's been working on this for a really, really long time, and it's just beautiful, incredible to be out here, and exciting and electric to be able to experience this out here with Miss Opal Lee.
And when you think about Opal Lee, I did a little bit of research because I wanted to try and bring perspective to what we're going to talk about here today. Miss Opal Lee has done so many things right in her life, and it's really interesting to Shar because it even started when she was born, because her parents got it right off the bat by naming her Opal. I went back and looked, and I wanted to find out the meaning of the name Opal. It's from a Sanskrit word, and it means precious stone or jewel.
Oh, wow.
Perfect, right?
Yeah.
I mean, she's precious. She's a jewel. You have to be rock hard and a stone to keep going the way she has gone. And I just think it was the beginning of her doing so many things right. A teacher, a counselor, a wonderful counselor, some might say, as well as an activist. She
And a
checks
counselor
all the
in more ways than one, Joe.
and I mean that, right? And that's why I say wonderful counselor, right?
Yep.
Because in so many different facets, she has helped people along the way. And I just, it's interesting that her parents got it right. It's interesting. Listen, Opal is also the birthstone for October. She was born October 7th. But in choosing that name, her parents kicked it off exactly and precisely right.
And you know what, Joe? I got a chance to speak with Miss Opal. For those of you who didn't get a chance to watch the special before, we came out here live for the walk here this morning, the Walk for Freedom, and she talks about her parents. She talked a lot about her parents and her grandparents and kind of what they instilled in her. And I asked her, where did all this social activism come from? And she said her grandparents and her parents always instilled in her the importance of making sure you get out to vote. She told me this one story, Joe, about voting, and they have to pay the poll tax, right?
Yes.
She had to pay a poll tax, and she just remembers having to decide whether or not she was going to pay this poll tax to make sure she exercised her right to vote, or if she was going to feed her children. She went and paid that poll tax. Now the kids got fed. Don't mistake my words. The kids did get fed.
Right.
But she told me that story just about the sacrifices that she had to make early on. So that social activism, making sure that she was involved in this work, this started years and years ago before she even knew that Juneteenth was something that was going to become her life's work. So I know we have some pieces that we talked about earlier, and I want to bring some of that onto the screen here this morning. On your website, it lists you as a social impact leader. What does that mean to you?
I have no idea, honey. Call it what you will.
You say you just doing the work.
Everybody is a social impact leader if they will talk to young people and put them on the right path to making this the greatest country in the world. It's desperately needed.
The greatest country in the world still has people who go hungry each day.
What do they say? Rise from the ashes.
People Miss Opal saw in her own neighborhood in South Fort Worth. A food bank in the area struggling to keep up with demand. Then in 2006, someone set it on fire.
Heavy smoke rising from the Metroplex food bank turned out to be a cover, say investigators, for crime.
I was with a group in the food bank and it burned. Behind my house was this huge facility, 32,000 square feet. It was up for sale for $1.3 million. I had nerve enough to ask for it. Those people leased us that building for $4,000 a month.
Wow.
I nearly had a hemorrhage. Where are we gonna get any $4,000? But we paid it for 11 months. And the month we didn't have it, the owners came to us and said, looks like you're doing a good job out here feeding 500 families a day.
Wow.
And they gave us that $1.3 million building. I tell you, I could have done a holy dance.
Look, you achieve more in retirement than most will achieve in a lifetime. I need to ask you this. Did you expect to be working as hard in retirement?
Well, I knew one thing. I wasn't going to be sitting and rocking and waiting for the Lord to come and get me. He was going to have to catch me. And so I knew I had to be doing something. And I knew there was plenty to do. Getting the food bank up and going, I polled people standing in line, and 66 of them said they were willing to farm. And so I asked the Trinity River Authority, and they gave me the use of 13 acres of land on the Trinity River. Oh, we have produced food without pesticides. We share it with the food bank and the WIC program, and our farm manager, Joel, goes to the market, and he's taking wonderful produce, and the people are loving it.
You know what, in that pack, first of all, people, I don't know if y'all can hear us underneath while some of this stuff is running, but you said, Joe, she has so many incredible lines, and she does. One of the things she said in that story, we have plenty to do. So yes, we've made progress over these last, 40, 50 years or so, but there's still so much work to do, and she wants to reemphasize that because folks ask, why do we celebrate Juneteenth? Was that just an all happy moment? And maybe not to some folks who didn't want to see that come to fruition. However, it's important that we remember there's still so much work to do. Yes, we've made progress, but one step at a time, we can all do a little something.
Yeah, the change is incremental, right? Yeah. There's still so much work to be done. However, you still have to take time to look at the improvement, right?
Absolutely.
Learn from the demonstrated ability so that you can continue to do it moving forward. It's incredibly important. One of the lines I love, Miss Opal said, he's going to have to catch me, talking about the Lord. That was incredible because, we like to say in the sports realm all the time that Father Time is undefeated.
Come on now.
I think Miss Opal got Father Time.
We got the sports guy on the set with me this morning.
I think Miss Opal might have given Father Time his one defeat at 95 years young, still doing what she's doing. And the reach and the scope and how she affects so many people, as you can see here. I mean, they gravitate towards Opal Lee. They want to be around Opal Lee, and it's everyday people. It's decision makers. It's change makers, and that's the important part about her steadfastness. And I mean, look at this. I mean, the generational aspect of it. Miss Opal Lee pushing a baby right there, and if that picture doesn't make you think about.
Oh my goodness. I know. And I can get in here real quick because I can feel exactly what Joe's feeling right now. This is historical. This is generational. And that baby going to look back at that picture one day and realize that they were a part of change, a part of history here this morning in Fort Worth, Texas. Joe, you about to make me somebody cutting some onions around here.
So why do you do it? Why do you do it? Why does it happen? Why is it important? Why are we here? That picture says it all for me, right? It's for those that come afterward. As I was saying before, Miss Opal's impact reaches so many that it can help create change. And in one of those ways, there's going to be a Juneteenth museum that's going to be created. Fort Worth Mayor Mattie Parker was here earlier today speaking about that very fact. And we want to give you the background as well as a look ahead at what's coming in terms of that Juneteenth museum. Take a look.
Wait till I tell the girls I met Scoop.
Affectionately known as the grandmother of Juneteenth.
Is this volume right now all right?
Yes, yes.
At the age of 95, Miss Opal Lee is not slowing down thanks to family.
Granddaughter of the grandmother of Juneteenth.
Deion Sims will serve as the founding executive director of the National Juneteenth Museum.
We took 1,500,000 signatures to Congress. We got a call to go to the White House.
The groundbreaking will happen in the fall of 2022 here at East Rosedale and Evans Avenue. Opal Lee has owned this property since the 1990s.
Folks have tried to buy it from her, and she's like, no.
No, because Lee saw it as an economic development opportunity one day.
All right.
That day is now here.
I wanted to do a holy dance, but the kids say when I do that, I'm twerking, whatever that is.
Miss Opal, keeps poking us in the back. She's like, I want to see it before I have to go. So y'all make sure to, work as fast as you can.
The financing for the museum involves a huge price tag with corporate and community donations.
$70 million, because the Juneteenth Museum is not only just a museum, it also has economic redevelopment components to it.
Unlike the current Juneteenth Museum, the National Museum will include a retail space, lodging, all while celebrating the end of slavery.
When the Juneteenth Museum opens here at Rosedale and Evans, Sims wants people to know it will be so much more than just how slavery impacted African Americans.
Whites, blacks, working together for the common good of emancipating the previously enslaved. The Southern Underground Railroad into Mexico. Mexico abolished slavery in 1824.
Sims also shared they will use the date June 19th as a symbolic number for everyone to help build the museum.
They're going to be giving $6.19 so they can have a part to say, I helped build that.
In Fort Worth.
Get to know the older people in your neighborhood because they've got something to offer.
I'm Scoop Jefferson.
I know that's right.
Yeah, so and we're right here, right? Yeah, get to know those older people. Incredibly important. The wisdom is there, and Miss Opal Lee just giving it out, just incredibly so. And we're right here on that site, right? It's going to be right in this general vicinity of where we are right now here on the south side of Fort Worth. So it's incredible to be, in this place, knowing that not only are we living the history right now, but it will be documented for years to come in terms of that museum so that, that baby in that stroller can come back and see it.
Yeah. Hopefully that picture of that baby in that stroller, her pushing it, makes it into that
indeed.
museum. We're taking a live look at our chopper images here, you guys, over that Walk for Freedom, Miss Opal's Walk for Freedom. 2.5 miles is what's happening here this morning. They're making their way over the bridge here. They're going to end at Pier 1. They started at the historic Evans Plaza in the historic south side of Fort Worth. Miss Opal, Joe, has been doing just so much work to get to this point, and she's out there making that walk along with so many decision makers, so many change makers, so many folks who's helping to bring that museum, to your point, here to Fort Worth. By the way, that museum, it's going to be a national museum, right? So this is going to be the National Juneteenth Museum for the United States of these Americas, all right? Right here in Fort Worth. So that is a big deal for a lot of folks, and folks will have to come to Fort Worth, Texas to be able to view and be a part of that. I'll tell you what, they're also starting a campaign because it takes a lot of money, as you heard Scoop mention in that story there. It takes a lot of money to make this happen. So a campaign for $6.19, or you can do $6.19 however you want to, significant of June 19th, right?
Yes.
You can do $619, $6.19. I talked to one of our producers not too long ago, and she was saying, what can I do to help raise money for that? So she's going to try to get one of her daughters to do a campaign, $6.19.
I love it.
Here in Fort Worth.
I love it. Girl Scout campaigns, Boy Scout campaigns, right? Make that 619 resonate, and I think it's important, right? And it's about memorials and markers like that to make sure we understand the history, and then it's really interesting because it goes beyond that, and it's because of Miss Opal, right? I will say this, Mother Nature doing us a little bit of an assist. There's been a breeze coming through.
Yeah.
You know, Miss Opal's got a hand in that as well, apparently.
She does, and thank goodness she got that umbrella overhead, too. She need that this morning, and we got a little tent situation set up out here. The lovely folks that got out here early on this morning to put that together for us. And Mother Nature is helping us out a little bit, Joe, because we need that breeze. I saw Scoop. Scoop was sweating it out earlier, but he's staying hydrated out there along the route with Miss Opal here this morning. One of the things about Miss Opal, we always talk about her, and you see her there live on your screen, and the work that she's done to get to this point for Juneteenth. And folks forget she does a lot of other things behind the scenes, and part of what Miss Opal does is her farm. Oh, she's pushing the baby again, and that is just absolutely beautiful, y'all. They're over the bridge, just now getting over the bridge there, and they're trying to make sure we clear the path. Remember early on we said this is organized chaos out here. And I tell you what, it's just beautiful to be able to see this, Joe. I hope that one makes it into the museum. That picture got to make it in.
It's fantastic.
You know, and I wonder if that's one of her family members.
That's what I'm thinking, right?
Great-grandbaby or something there.
Yes.
Oh, my goodness. That's just beautiful. What were you feeling, Joe?
Yeah.
When you saw that image earlier?
It's hard to put into words because like I said, change is it's an interesting thing, right? Because you think you've made change. There have been years before where there's been obvious positive changes, and then you take 2 steps forward, and then you might take a half step back, right? But seeing that, there's hope, there's inspiration in that.
That walk and that image that I just saw from the chopper, seeing them walk over that bridge.
Yeah.
Does that remind you of anything?
Absolutely, yeah, the Edmund Pettus Bridge.
Yeah.
Of course. So there's symbolism all throughout it. There's hope. There's a recognition that more needs to be done, but there's also a recognition that there's determination that things can change and things can get better, and we can all help one another. Right. To be
all of us too.
Yes, all of us to be our best selves as a group, as a community, and it takes people like Opal Lee. I mean, because she's a force of nature. She is. Right, in the way she has made her change and the way she's gone about it. But yeah, I mean, I can't get over that image. I just can't.
That image, the image that we're looking at right now, and of course that one that you guys saw from up top, them walking over that bridge. Certainly the symbolism is there, and I hope that you can feel it through the screen, because we can certainly feel it here at the historic Evans Plaza here in south side of Fort Worth, and it just means quite a bit to be able to witness history, to be a part of this history. I want to get out live to Scoop Jefferson. Scoop, what's happening out there along the walk? How does it feel, my friend, to be out there?
Well, it feels wonderful. We just crossed the bridge into downtown Fort Worth. Now, Miss Opal is getting a lot of support from people walking here with her in the Freedom Walk. They're chanting, "Let's go, Opal, let's go." So, she was determined to do this walk, the 2.5 miles, and she has endured the heat along with so many of her supporters here in Fort Worth for the 2022 Juneteenth Freedom Walk. Shatara and Joe?
All right. Oh, my goodness. Can you imagine, Joe, being out there hearing folks saying, "Let's go, Opal. Let's go, Opal."
Those are the cheers I really like, right? Because they're trying to help Miss Opal go. I mean, listen, as much as I mentioned she's a force of nature, let's not forget Miss Opal is still 95 years old, right?
And this is still nature.
Yes, and we're still in nature. It is the Texas heat, and she is, this has got to be draining Miss Opal, but it's also so much joy. I'm sure those cheers are helping carry her along this route as she goes. I mean, it's fantastic to watch, and just more reason for her to be that inspiration that so many of us feel that she is. And she is. She does so many things, right? I mean, you were talking earlier about, the Trinity Farm that she has put together. And I mean, it's well done. It's well needed.
And one of the reasons she wanted to make sure that farm was created was because this particular area is a food desert for so many, right? And she wanted to make sure families who lived in food deserts had somewhere to go and get some sustainable food options. And so that was the reason that she created that farm. And I know we have a little something to show you about that one.
It's one of the best views in Fort Worth on the banks of the Trinity River.
We have some Anaheim chilies.
That's where you'll find Opal's farm.
We sell a lot of the heirlooms.
And you'll most likely spot Gregory Joel, the farm manager.
There's really not a break in the business here. We're busy all the time preparing either for the next round of beds or harvesting and maintaining the new ones. I harvested these 2 rows yesterday.
Community leaders are lending a hand to make all of it happen, growing everything from tomatoes to carrots.
We literally have to harvest tomatoes every day.
If you're new to North Texas, it is not easy to farm here because the soil is very dry.
It's going from rich East Texas soil to really bad West Texas soil. That's why it's so important if you do organics, you're building the soil health. We want to leave this better than we found it.
They're improving nearly 5 acres of land and kickstarting a farm-to-table operation, serving food deserts like the United Riverside neighborhood.
One of the questions early on was, how do we define food insecurity and look at all the problems? And we did a mind map that shows virtually every problem that we face. Crime, poor education, stems from food insecurity, and Tarrant County is, I believe, one of the top 10 counties in the country for food insecurity.
Opal's farm is now on track to produce nearly 20,000 pounds of harvest this season.
We have 4 varieties of squash down on the other end.
Half of it will go to local food banks, helping families deal with inflation, and the other half keeps the farm open.
We split it in half. Half of it we take to Cowtown Farmers Market on the west side of Fort Worth, and that's sold at retail, okay? And that helps subsidize the other half that we take to the WIC markets.
It's truly a mission with deep roots that will continue to grow.
To know that this is Miss Opal's legacy and I get to be a part of it is real important to me, because not only are we helping people, but on a personal level, working with Unity Unlimited and Miss Opal has been, it's like working for family.
In Fort Worth, I'm Cleo Green.
Yeah, Cleo Green there. No, sorry.
There.
Sorry, no, I got it. That was Cleo Green there. Interesting story, right, with all the work that Miss Opal is doing. And, we were just talking about the symbolism when we talked about Miss Opal, pushing that stroller along and having that young child so close, in such close proximity to her there. There is so much symbolism in the movement, so much symbolism in this day. I do want to explain to you a little bit more about the Juneteenth flag, because there's some interesting symbolism there and things that you probably don't know that we want to share with you now. So here's the Juneteenth flag. Check this out. The Juneteenth flag commemorates the day slavery ended in the U.S. The red, white, blue banner with a bursting star in the middle is full of symbols, according to the flag's creator, activist Ben Haith, founder of the National Juneteenth Celebration Foundation. Let's start with the colors, of course representing the American flag, and a reminder that slaves and their descendants were and are Americans. This curve across the width of the flag represents a new horizon, the opportunities and promise that lay ahead for Black Americans after freedom. The white star in the center of the flag has a dual meaning, representing Texas, the Lone Star State. It was in Galveston in 1865 where Union soldiers informed the country's last remaining slaves that the Civil War was over and they were free. Haith says the star also goes beyond Texas, representing the freedom of African Americans in all 50 states. The bursting outline around the star is inspired by a nova, or new star, according to astronomy. This represents a new beginning for all African Americans. Yeah, I really wanted to share that, right? Because I thought the symbolism was so well placed, well-meaning, really interesting, too, the way they wove in the American flag and all the other symbolism that was there. Really well done with the Juneteenth flag.
Because we all in this together, right?
That's
we
right.
got to remember that, folks.
Absolutely.
We want to get back out to Scoop Jefferson this morning along the route. And, Scoop, you've been toughing it out, my friend. What's going on out your way?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Despite the heat, Miss Opal is almost to her van. She has been just a trooper in this freedom walk. Next to her, her granddaughter, Deion Sims. And this has been an amazing event. History in the making. The 2022 Freedom Walk here in Fort Worth. Again, she has wanted to do this. She wanted people from the community here. Despite the heat, as you can see, I have a rag on my head to kind of minimize the heat, the sun from hitting me. But this is something that she really, really wanted to do. And again, she's almost at her vehicle, her granddaughter at her side. Her granddaughter will serve as the executive director for the National Juneteenth Museum here in Fort Worth. They're hoping to open that in 2024. And she has done a great job. The baby that she's pushing, the heat has knocked that baby out. The baby is asleep. But Miss Opal has endured this 2.5-mile freedom walk, celebrations just like this one happening around the country, and she is elated that this is happening. Back to you, Tashara and Joe.
Oh, that just makes me so happy,
That's
Joe.
great.
Scoop, thank you so much.
And listen, we're here for Miss Opal Lee, but just a quick shout out to Scoop Jefferson doing yeoman's work out there, right? We know how it is, and Cody Markham is his camera videographer. He's out there carrying that heavy camera, so great job out there making sure that we can document this. And I want to make this point about what's going on today and what will go on here in Fort Worth with the museum being here, because obviously the birthplace of Juneteenth is Galveston, right? That's where Gordon Granger, that military member, came and let everyone know that slaves in Texas were to be free when he read General Order Number 3, right? But that was the birthplace.
Yeah.
Fort Worth is going to be the epicenter of Juneteenth moving forward, and this will be, when people want to find out about this federal holiday, when they want to find out about this piece of American history, Fort Worth will be where they come.
Emphasis on American history, right? A lot of times folks like to equate this with African American history, with black history. No, this is American history, and it's going to be right here, smack dab in the middle of Fort Worth, Texas, y'all. And I want to emphasize, too, that folks are going to have, artifacts and things along those lines from all across the United States, right? Things that have symbolism to you with Juneteenth. So if you want to get in touch with the folks that are doing that, Deion Sims, as Scoop Jefferson mentioned, her granddaughter is going to be leading that museum, leading the efforts to make sure that they can get those artifacts from all across the country. We're looking at a live look. That's Miss Opal Lee under that black and red umbrella there. And I believe she is getting in her van. They said, I heard Scoop Jefferson mention that she has a van somewhere out there parked ready to receive her. That 2.5 miles, Joe Trahan.
Incredible stuff.
2.5 miles.
Yeah, we're going to stay here and kind of soak this in as Miss Opal makes the transition here. We'll kind of follow her. As we said, she is under that black and red umbrella that you can see in the middle of your screen. Chopper 8 has these great images, as she continues to make her walk towards the Pier 1 building, which is in downtown Fort Worth. It's a 2.5-mile trek. As we mentioned before, that's symbolic of the 2.5 years that it took for slaves to be freed here in Texas after the Emancipation Proclamation. So there we see Miss Opal. I wouldn't be surprised if Miss Opal was saying, listen, I can keep going.
Okay, and not only that, she probably out there, right? Just looking at this and being in her presence not too long ago when we were out shooting videos and things along those lines, preparing for this day and that special that maybe folks got a chance to see before we came on here live. Dion, her granddaughter, she manages her, right? And she was trying to get Miss Opal like, oh, no, it's time to go. It's time to move on. Miss Opal like, let me just take one more picture. One more quick video. And let me tell you, Joe Trahan, I tried to help Miss Opal Lee get out the car when she pulled up for our video shoot. Miss Opal Lee said, I don't need no help, baby. I got it.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And that's why she keeps going. Yeah. That's why she has beaten Father Time. She's the only one to defeat Father Time. And that's the great thing I like about Miss Opal Lee as well, because she's so quick-witted still at 95, if I can only do it at 53. It's amazing the way that she continues to surge on, to continue to go on.
Yeah.
And she's also got that humor, right, that captivates you, and it brings you in. And she's kind of like all of us, right, you guys? We got a great story about her cell phone. And I think she's going to be here for a minute. So I want to go to that because just like all of us loving our cell phone and a lot of us being tied to our cell phone, listen to this bit about Miss Opal Lee and her cell phone.
I think I got pictures on my phone of that, and that girl got my phone.
Oh. You gonna tell her to give you your phone back?
Yeah, she talking about the Wi-Fi and the hi-fi and the overfly and underfly. Shucks.
What's it called again?
She know I need that phone. Just to feel it makes me feel all right.
What's she calling your pacifier?
Oh yeah, it's my pacifier. That's what it is.
Do you really be on there, Miss Opal?
Well, you know, let me hold it.
Let me just... I tell you what, and she wanted that phone back. She said that's her pacifier, and she need her pacifier to get through the day.
Well, Tashara, I'm curious, right? Because you had a chance to be in her presence, and you kind of felt that magnetism for a longer time than a lot of us have been able to.
Yeah.
How would you describe her ability to kind of draw you in with the way she is so just smart with everything
and
she does?
Quick.
Yes.
Just so quick with everything. I would say, as the young people say, energy.
I love it. I love it.
It's the energy for me, right?
Yeah.
And when you're surrounded by greatness and you're in the presence of greatness, you can just feel that. She makes every single person that she encounters feel seen, right? So this was all about Miss Opal Lee. But Miss Opal Lee wanted to make sure that everybody there felt seen. She made comments to some of our videographers, our photographers that we had there on the scene as she was walking up to get seated where we had our interview, by the way, at the Fort Worth Botanical Gardens. Thank you to them for allowing us to be there to shoot that special. And she just makes everyone feel seen. And you just are drawn to her presence, drawn to her energy. And she makes every single person around her just elevate.
I think she has this innate understanding of the power of recognition, right? And what it can do and how it can make people feel. I think her EQ, her emotional quotient, is just off the charts. I mean, I just met her for a couple of seconds, and she made sure, of course I know who you are, Joe. And I mean, she called me by name immediately, and it's just, again, it goes back to her ability to be still be so quick at this advanced age. To most of us, it's obviously still a young age for her, right? 95 years young. So that is startling. It is incredible, and it's also fantastic to be in her presence. I just wanted to kind of tug on her cloth a little bit.
I know.
Hoping just a little bit of it would rub off.
I tell you what, even that interview that Scoop Jefferson had for us earlier, where Scoop talked to her about the museum and talked to her granddaughter about the museum. When Scoop first walked into the room, I don't know if you caught this at the very beginning, she was like, I told my friends I get to meet Scoop Jefferson.
so fantastic, right? And she gets that because it's the recognition that allows people to be drawn in.
Absolutely.
And the other thing that I think she intimately understands is the value of servant leadership.
Yes.
Right? Because while she's at the forefront of that walk, she makes sure that you know that you're a part of the movement, and she is serving a greater purpose, a purpose that she wants you to be a part of, and that's how you get people into the movement and help with the movement.
It goes back to that point that we mentioned way early on, Joe. Every single person can do something. She often emphasizes that in many interviews, many conversations, you will hear Opal Lee say that. Everybody can do a little something to get us to the point of where we need to be. Again, we always have to recognize the progress that has been made, but we still have a long way to go. And Ms. Opal Lee emphasizes that with this celebration, that we continue to celebrate Juneteenth to remind folks of the work that has been done and the work that she's been doing and the work that a lot of folks have been doing for the last, several decades, to make sure that we understand the meaning of it, absolutely, but to also understand that we still have some work that needs to be done.
And I think you brought up a very good point, Tashara, because this has been a decades-long journey.
Sure.
For Miss Opal Lee, and she has had to bring along and create so many different bridges to have people join her. She understands how to create allies in this fight that she has had, and she has done it on so many levels of government, of business, social and community leaders. She's done it in all different walks of life, and it's like I said, that's why she's this force majeure. I mean, just a force of nature, and the ability to pull this off is. I mean, it's ridiculous almost.
We talk about her being a social impact and doing all these things. Look, I talked to Miss Opal about being a social impact leader. Here's what she had to say, y'all. On your website, it lists you as a social impact leader. What does that mean to you?
I have no idea, honey. Call it what you will.
You say you just doing the work.
Everybody is a social impact leader if they will talk to young people and put them on the right path to making this the greatest country in the world. It's desperately needed.
The greatest country in the world still has people who go hungry each day.
What do they say? Rise from the ashes.
People Miss Opal saw in her own neighborhood in South Fort Worth.
How you go, sir?
A food bank in the area struggling to keep up with demand. Then in 2006, someone set it on fire.
Heavy smoke rising from the Metroplex food bank turned out to be a cover, say investigators, for crime.
I was with a group in the food bank and it burned. Behind my house was this huge facility, 32,000 square feet. It was up for sale for $1.3 million. I had nerve enough to ask for it. Those people leased us that building for $4,000 a month.
Wow.
I nearly had a hemorrhage. Where are we gonna get any $4,000? But we paid it for 11 months. And the month we didn't have it, the owners came to us and said, looks like you're doing a good job out here feeding 500 families a day.
Wow.
And they gave us that $1.3 million building. I tell you, I could have done a holy dance.
Look, you achieve more in retirement than most will achieve in a lifetime. I need to ask you this. Did you expect to be working as hard in retirement?
Well, I knew one thing. I wasn't going to be sitting and rocking and waiting for the Lord to come and get me. He was going to have to catch me. And so I knew I had to be doing something. And I knew there was plenty to do. Getting the food bank up and going, I polled people standing in line, and 66 of them said they were willing to farm. And so I asked the Trinity River Authority, and they gave me the use of 13 acres of land on the Trinity River. Oh, we have produced food without pesticides. We share it with the food bank and the WIC program, and our farm manager, Joel, goes to the market, and he's taking wonderful produce, and the people are loving it.
I think what we saw in that piece, Tashara, was the audacity of Miss Opal Lee, right? And here we go as we take a look. Let's check in with where the 2.5-mile walk is. Look, see, I told you, Tashara, Miss Opal Lee wasn't ready to get in that van. She was not ready to get in a van, right? She's like, just keep it there in case I need it. I'm gonna keep going. And that's why she is who she is.
That is the audacity to be loud about everything you believe in, okay? And I think that whole time that we were sitting on this shot when she was underneath that black and red umbrella that you see there in the middle of your screen on our chopper shot here, HD Chopper 8, she was probably standing there probably arguing with her grandbaby. Who knows? I don't know, hypothetically speaking, y'all. But probably saying she going to keep going on this walk.
And again, these are hypotheticals.
Yeah,
we don't know for sure. But, I mean, listen, you don't have to spend much time around Miss Opal to understand her persuasive-ness as well. But in terms of the audacity of the asks that she makes, right? And it's a knowledge that she has got right on her side, and because she does, she can be audacious, and you know it's the hope that she creates, and it's the synergism with those who want to do the right thing that creates an outcome like this.
I want to talk about that hope portion because she mentioned 1,500,000 signatures that they delivered to the White House to try to get this thing passed. When I talked to her in our interview, she said, you know what, Tashara, if I needed to get 1,500,000 more, we was gonna make it happen to get this thing passed, and they just have been working so diligently hard to get this made as a federal holiday so other folks can understand the importance of Juneteenth. Again, I know us here in Texas, we've been celebrating this for years, but maybe around the country, they had no idea what was going on.
I think this is a good time because I do remember it as a kid, and I can remember it meant some really incredible things, right? It was family, it was fun, it was music, and it was food.
And there was food.
It was food. That's what it was, and that's what we grew up. And it was community in a larger sense, and just an ability to be around the people who loved you most.
Yeah.
Important.
I think as an adult, one of the additional elements that I've come to realize with Juneteenth is it's a celebration of Black excellence. It's a celebration of folks coming together to honor our past, but also look forward to our future and the work that still has to be done. One of the things with Miss Opal, you guys saw her grandbaby Dion was with her at the forefront of this, leading that walk. She manages Miss Opal along with the firm that has come on board. CAA, by the way, she is signed to CAA. If you know, you know, the Creative Arts Agency, and that is a huge firm to be assigned to, agency that is to be assigned to. But Miss Opal and her granddaughter, their bond is amazing, and I really want you guys to get a sense of what I felt interviewing them at the Fort Worth Botanical Gardens. Your grandmother is a remarkable woman. You have a front row seat watching her make history alongside her. What does that feel like to you?
You know what? It really feels natural. It really feels like all the things that we've done, you know, up until this point, you know, how God's orchestrated my life, it's really kind of been to support her at this time, this window of opportunity. So it really does feel natural. And I'm grateful for being here and for this season.
Look, as our manager now, you two obviously are very close. Have you always been that close over the years?
No, as a matter of fact. And it's usually like that with the paternal grandmother, especially when the parents are divorced. So you're closer to your mother's mother, all right, because she keeps you more. And the fact that my dad's mom was not the grandmotherly type. I mean, she's too busy. She, you know, was in the community doing everything. So she wasn't the when you go get sick, you go to her house, right? So that was my mom's mom. And I remember turning 35, and it hit me that I had never told my grandmother that I loved her. Because we're more show me love, you know, and that kind of gets you in trouble too, because some folks' love language is affirmation. I just show you I'm here. If you need me, you got me, right, kind of thing. So I said, you know what? I've never told you I loved you, and I do. I love you. Okay, baby. And that was the moment, and it was gone. But yeah.
Miss Opal, your granddaughter manages you. What is that relationship like?
Volatile.
Why is it volatile?
Because she has, you know, the things that she wants to get done, and I might want to stop and pick the daisies, and she ain't ready for that, so I have to listen, and it's awful hard to listen to youngsters. I'm here to tell you. Ooh, girl. But I manage. I do manage.
Okay. You have any rebuttal?
No.
Who's Miss Opal's favorite grandchild?
My cousin Renee.
Oh, really?
Yes, my cousin Renee. Renee is the judge of the Northern District of Texas. She's got 2 sons, and they're twins, and she's the oldest.
Okay.
I mean, that's the first one.
There you go.
So, you know, so she's the oldest granddaughter, but I think she's a favorite.
Okay. Miss Opal, does that sound about right?
Well, if she wants to take it like that, everybody else thinks she is the favorite.
So I wanted to ask you about that. Do the other grandkids get a little jealous?
No, I don't think so. They're too busy.
Exactly. They're glad I've ticked up this wing of it. No. Ain't nobody jealous of me. Ain't nobody jealous of me at all.
Yeah, there you go. Wow, and I love that picture of Miss Opal Lee as we catch up with Opal Lee's annual Walk for Freedom. From what we understand on the 2.5-mile trek, they're about a third of the way to the Pier 1 building in downtown Fort Worth. That 2.5 miles, so symbolic of the 2.5 years it took for slaves in Texas to find out that they were actually freed 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation. So there you see she continues to go. Man, Opal Lee, she's got it all down, Tashar. She knows in that story you saw, she knows she can't show favoritism, right? She's like, that's
she still knows that at 95, don't do it.
Right, it's Mom Handbook 101, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was great stuff. Great to hear. Great to see her laugh and have fun like that.
Absolutely, and there were so many moments like that, Joe, that I wish that we would have the time to share. Clearly, we don't have it on this show, but we're going to try to get some more of that on our digital platforms, WFAA.com, of course, as well as on our YouTube fame. You heard me mention that she's had a lot of newfound fame, like Miss Opal, been doing this for decades, okay?
Yes.
But she's had a lot of newfound fame, and part of that, she signed on early on with the Pro Bono group, and then that led her to the Creative Arts Agency, a major agency. Come on, from the sports world, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Listen, and that's when you become, the superstar status, when you become, these larger-than-life athletes and entertainers, they sign on with CAA. So Miss Opal is exactly where she belongs.
So I asked her at 95 years old, how did you get with the Creative Arts Agency, Miss Opal, CAA? Here's what she said. Miss Opal, you didn't set out to make a name for yourself, right? This was the work that you were doing, you had been doing for quite some time. You just signed with a talent agency in your 90s. You are a big deal. Okay, so we got to talk about this. What has this newfound fame, everybody seeing what you're doing, what has it been like for you?
I go about my daily routine. I have, the stardust in my eyes. 'Cause work is work. And when you've got things to do, you just keep doing them. And it doesn't seem like a big deal to help somebody else.
It's deeply rooted in the DNA. Dion, you hear your grandmother saying, dropping off food or doing all the things. You manage her now. There's a lot that goes into managing her and managing her schedule. What is a typical day like for you guys?
So a typical day, there's usually about 2 or 3 Zooms.
Good morning, sir.
Some in-person, things like, what we're doing with you.
Smiling and a little bit of body language as you talk.
Juneteenth is 365, okay? Freedom is 365. As long as she has breath and folks still want to hear why Juneteenth is important, she'll continue to let me book her.
I want to talk about CAA, Creative Arts Agency. That is a pretty big deal. They're not just signing everybody. I mean, the list, Hollywood A-list, Tom Hanks, Ava DuVernay, Steven Spielberg, the list goes on. How did that come about?
And it's really neat. So I really have to thank Scott Cullither with Invent Group. Invent Group signed on to be our marketing and branding.
Scott and his team, they actually took on Miss Opal pro bono. From there, his team, along with Change.org, they helped get Miss Opal to D.C. to drop off their petition to make Juneteenth a national holiday. From there, it was natural to join CAA.
There has to be a little fun that comes along with this journey of this newfound fame. Have you found some fun in it? What has been one of your funnest moments?
Oh, listen. I just adore the young people, you understand, who want to help the elderly. And sometimes I let them. It surprises them when I can make up the stairs and, I don't have to have their hands on me.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of cute.
What she say? I think that's kind of cute. Well, I tell you what, it's kind of cute to be out here live experiencing this history, these historical moments. Obviously going to go down in the books here. Miss Opal Lee on that 2.5-mile walk here we're watching this morning. Joe, we've said it many times, symbolic of the 2.5 years that enslaved people had to wait to find out that information about them being free. General Gordon Granger read General Order number 3 in Galveston, Texas, a story that many of us here that are from Texas have heard many times. And being from Houston, obviously, Galveston right up the street, we've heard this many times over the years. So I'm happy that we're at a point where other individuals across the country can know what this means as a federal holiday.
Yeah, June 19th, 1865. That's when that General Order number 3 was read there in Galveston, Texas. And it turned out to be, one step in this journey, that has taken, so long, but we're here now with Miss Opal Lee having spurred us on further in this journey, and it's great to hear her talk. I'm so glad that she has this platform, and I'm so glad that you did what you did, having that long-form interview.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of that long-form interview, one of the things that I often mention, we talk about her being the grandmother of Juneteenth, but she a grandmother, y'all, okay? A grandmama, all right? She got grandbabies, all right? We're still trying to figure out who in that stroller. That might be a great-grandbaby, but we don't know yet. We're going to figure it out, and I'm going to try to get that answer before we leave out of here. But, yes, speaking of her just being a grandmother, that's what I wanted to hear, and I believe we have that for you now. You know, they call you the grandmother of Juneteenth. What do you think when you hear about that?
Well, I think about how old I am. At 95, I could be called the great-grandmother of Juneteenth.
What do you really want people to know about Juneteenth?
Freedom. I'm wanting them to realize that Juneteenth, a call for freedom. You see, when those 250,000 enslaved people in Texas learned they were free, they started celebrating, and we've been celebrating ever since.
Okay.
She says it so eloquently,
Yeah.
right? When she talks about freedom, and I do want to make the point that it's freedom for all of us.
Yeah.
Because when we don't do what's right, we are all in some ways enslaved and in shackles, right? When we don't choose the right thing. And Miss Opal is helping us all as a community, as a society, get closer to all choosing the right thing.
Yeah, and I want to say this too, you know, just being out here, being able to be a part of this moment, a part of history with you, Joe, with the incredible team that we have working behind the scenes. It's just been awesome to witness and awesome to see how all of this came together. So many folks working to make this special happen, to make that conversation that so many people witness happen here with Miss Opal Lee, because we understood the importance of making sure that we give Miss Opal her flowers, because she's been on this mission, doing this work for decades. Yes, I know a lot of people have learned about Miss Opal over the last several years, maybe even the last decade or so, but she's been on this track to make Juneteenth a federal holiday for a really long time. So President Biden made that official last year when he invited her to the White House to sign on that dotted line. And you mentioned this way early on in the show. She still has that pen where she signed, and she tells us she keeps that in a very special place. So this thing is going to end at Pier 1, you guys. There's another event happening, and I want to make sure that I mention it. It's from 2 to 10 because I had folks asking me, what else can they do?
Yeah, so it's
Panther Island.
It's the Juneteenth celebration there at Panther Island right there in downtown Fort Worth. So all these people who are going through the Freedom Walk with Miss Opal, they will continue this throughout the day. They will continue to celebrate this fantastic day. Incredible stuff here. And as we reflect on the day, as we talk about what we've been through. Tashar, I knew this day was going to be in some ways emotional for me because getting to see that history in the making is just so important for me, and I think it's important to convey what it means to all of us, to all people, not just black people, to all people. It's important, and I can't thank WFA enough for doing this and making sure that we were here on this day.
Absolutely. Thank you to the entire team who put this thing on. I know we got to get out of here, and I just really appreciate all of you for tuning in. We've been seeing all of your tweets, all of your sharing. Thank you for just celebrating with us here on WFA. Y'all hear Beyonce playing. We going to keep running because winners don't quit on themselves. The Juneteenth Freedom Walk with Miss Opal Lee. Myself, Joe Trahan, we out of here, y'all.